880 AM, The Biz welcomes you to Take 3 with Emily, founder of Miami Women Who Rock, a nonprofit organization dedicated to honoring and empowering women. In this weekly program, Emily will share years of diverse business experience to help you succeed and avoid pitfalls. Here's your host, Emily.
Welcome to Take 3 with Emily. This is your host, Emily Zuby. Today, we're going to be talking about a very difficult topic and a topic that's not easy, divorce. I have with me today a very special attorney, and there aren't many attorneys that I would say that about, but I have with me today Andrew Drucker, attorney at law specializing in divorce. And one thing that I must say about Andy, as I refer to him, is that he is an attorney with a heart and believes in a win-win approach to divorce. Any of you out there that have ever gone through a divorce, and again, divorce is probably the last resort. It's not necessarily a choice we make, but given that we have to sometimes deal with it, you want to make sure that you have an attorney that really does believe in the win-win. A lot of people say, oh, let me go for the jugular, and no one wins in divorce cases like that. That's why I can personally endorse Andy Drucker. He's an amazing man. We're going to talk today about the big changes that are happening in divorce affecting alimony and child support, what every woman and man should know. We're going to talk about a great philosophy and a wonderful way to approach that preserves the family, which is the most important thing. And we're going to talk about the real estate market, how the downturn of the real estate market is affecting divorce and some of the trends that we're seeing in divorce. And with that, I thank and welcome Andy Drucker. Welcome, Andy.
Emily, first of all, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I mean, certainly we've known each other now for a few years. And the interesting thing is the manner in which we met, because as we recognize, I represented you in your divorce case. But thank you again for having me. It really is a pleasure to be here with you this morning.
We're happy to have you. And I think the first thing that I would like you to talk about, Andy, really is your approach to divorce law. And I think that's so important. As I mentioned early on, divorce is not easy. I think that no one can recapture the time that is lost. What I like about you is that your philosophy is not about racking up the hours. It's about really getting a resolution and that win-win. So talk a little bit about your approach to divorce.
Certainly. The first thing I want to mention to you, Emily, is that I've often found it remarkable how two people can start out so in love and ultimately wind up hating each other so much. It's one of the remarkable things about human beings. But with that in mind, and recognizing that marriages always start with the best foot moving forward, and unfortunately, about 50% of the time now, by national measures, they're going to wind up in a divorce, we have to think in terms of what is really ultimately the best solution for people who unfortunately are going to go through a divorce. The manner in which the divorce itself is handled can set the tone for the parties literally for the rest of their lives. And the reason I say that is that if parties are involved in an extremely acrimonious divorce, where the two attorneys, let's say, get so personally involved that one is trying to one-up the other, not only are the costs of the divorce going to be exceedingly high, but the feelings between the parties are going to be so horribly bad that they will likely last the rest of their lives and make one, if not both of them, miserable for the rest of their lives.
That's really important. And while I know that you're not technically a collaborative attorney, I believe that your approach is very collaborative. I know in Los Angeles and in California, collaborative law is a very big practice, but particularly here in Florida, I think that your approach is very unique. It sets you apart from so many attorneys in that you really do focus in on preserving the family and making sure that life does go on and that it moves on very quickly because, as you're saying, to keep and control the emotions. So how do you manage your clients to stay away from that high emotional gear that fuels those long divorces?
All right. Well, the first thing that I do in every initial interview is I try to explain in the most broad terms what a party can expect while going through a divorce in terms of, what are the ultimate goals, what can be gained, what can be lost, and try to set very realistic expectations for that party. Rather than become a rabble-rouser and tell the client, oh, we're going to destroy your husband or we're going to destroy your wife, which I do believe is actually practiced by some attorneys, the thought process is, look, if you've got children, your kids are going to be deeply hurt by this. Your children love both of you. They love their moms, they love their dads. And the idea that their parents are breaking up is an extremely traumatic event for a child that will last forever. So we have to remind the parent, and again, whether or not it's the husband or the wife, that their children are going to be really, to a certain extent, destroyed by what's going to happen. So we got to make it as pleasant, and that word is difficult to fit into the definition of divorce, but as pleasant as possible in the sense that the parent should never say disparaging things about the other parent, regardless of what that parent has done, because the only one that's really being hurt here is the child. And as much as mom or dad may want to blow off some steam in front of the kid, or in front of their kids, it's extremely destructive. So anyway, the first thing is to lay out some reasonable goals, reasonable expectations, to try to explain to them that they need to really take the the high road, I should say.
The high road is really important, and one of the factors that I think I learned was peace. If you're doing anything that doesn't let you sleep at night, you shouldn't be doing it. Any of the actions that some attorneys may tell you to take, or any of those, keeping that peaceful place within the divorce. There's a quote here that I thought was really interesting. Being divorced is like being hit by a Mack truck. If you live through it, you start looking very carefully to the right and to the left. I mean, you deal with a lot of people who are stunned that they've been served papers, that they come in,
Sure.
the emotions are running high. What are some of those things, bearing in mind that there is family? How do you personally, as an attorney, manage those emotions?
That's never easy, because certainly there are situations where a spouse is served with divorce papers without having even the slightest inkling that that's going to be happening. I mean, in other words, you may have a situation where one spouse presumes that she or he has a very wonderful relationship with the other spouse, and then out of nowhere, they find out that the marriage isn't so great because one party's very unhappy. So, I mean, I'm certainly not schooled as a marriage counselor. I do have a background in psychology, which really helps me very little. It's really more of emotion, of trying very hard to put myself in the position of that client and just trying to be as warm and as understanding as possible, and not to try to encourage them to try to get back at that other party, but to try to make them recognize that unfortunately this is a part of life that is shared by millions of couples. I usually try to talk in terms of numbers. I'll say, you're not alone in this. Understand at this moment in time, there are millions of divorces pending in this country. Eventually, you'll be able to move on with your life, but I recognize it's a traumatic event now, and try to reassure them that this is a process that, sad to say, has become somewhat natural in our society. And if they keep that in mind, sometimes it does soften the blow.
The most important factor that I find about your approach in law and divorce law is that you don't take that to fuel, because there are many attorneys that would take that to really fuel and grow the resentment and be able to enter a longer type of divorce and battle. And another interesting fact about you is that you're married to a mediator.
That's true.
So that I think that plays into that win-win philosophy and that approach that you have, that while you give very strong, great representation, your approach is very much on controlling those emotions, keeping that peace, and making sure that at least you're the driver of that Mack truck a little bit.